Hi guys, today we are going to be factoring trinomials again. So it's very similar to what we've been doing. I just rewrote our rules up here that we've been following to factor. I just rewrote them again so that they are here in front of us. So we're gonna follow these. The only thing that's different, and the process won't change, but the only reason this might look a little different is instead of there just being a 1 in front of this x squared, we now are going to do ones where there's actually a number there. So remember, step 1 is to make sure that the expression you're given is in standard form, which this one is. It looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. Then remember, we draw our x, and in the top of our x we're going to do a times c. So in this problem, my a is 2 and my c is 3. So I'm going to do 2 times 3, which is 6. And in the bottom part of my x, we write what b is. In this problem, b is 5. So we're thinking of two numbers that multiply to get multiply to get 6, but would add to get 5. So let's write down all our factors of 6. So we could do 6 divided by 1 is 6, so 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6, and then of course 3 times 2 is 6. So we're back to where we started. So these are our only factors. Let's see what they add up to. So when I add these, 1 plus 6 is 7, and 2 plus 3 is 5. And we want it to add to get 5. So that means my factors are the 2 and the 3. Once you know your factors, you come back up and rewrite your bx term with your factors, 2 and 3. So let's rewrite our expression. So we'd have 2x squared plus, and instead of writing 5x, I'm going to write a 2x plus a 3x, and then plus 3. Once you have that written out, we're going to do grouping. We'll group the first two numbers together, and then we'll group the second two numbers together. And we're going to factor out the greatest common factor between those. So you're going to think, I have a 2x squared and a 2x. So the greatest common factor between 2x squared and 2x will be 2x. When I factor that out, 2 divided by 2 makes a 1, and an x squared taking away one of those would make an x there, plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. You had this x here, but you factored it out. So now it's gone. Plus, in my second grouping here, I have 3x plus 3. So the greatest common factor between 3x and 3 would be 3. When I factor that out, I would get 3 divided by 3 makes a 1x, and 3 divided by 3 makes 1. Remember, this is a good thing that we got the same expression in our parentheses. That's a good sign that we did it right. So this is one of my factors, and you can just write it x plus 1. You do not need the 1 in front. My other factor is what was factored out, so 2x plus 3. So our answer would be x plus 1 and 2x plus 3. Just so you know, you can write it the other way. I could also write 2x plus 3 and x plus 1. Either one of those is right. It doesn't matter the order. All right. I'd like you to try number 2 on your own. So go ahead. First make sure, and I forgot to do that, to see if anything could be factored out. And it couldn't. It also cannot in number 2. But go ahead and start by making your x. Remember, on top do a times c, and on your bottom do b. So we have ax squared plus bx plus c. So go ahead and fill in everything and see if you can get this one. All right, let's do number 3 together. So 3 says 9m squared plus 3m minus 2. So we are good to start because it looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. You have to check if you can factor out a greatest common factor. So I have a 9, a 3, and a 2. And nothing goes into all of those. So I do not have a greatest common factor to factor out. So if we make our x, on top I'll do a times c, and on the bottom I'll do b. So a times c would be 9 times negative 2, which is negative 18, and I want to add to get 3. So I need to multiply to get a negative number, but I need to add to get a positive number. So that means to multiply to get a negative, one number has to be negative and one has to be positive. But to add to get a positive number, the bigger number is going to have to be the positive one. So let's first write down all of our factors to get a negative 18. So I could do negative 1 times 18, negative 2 times 9, negative 3 times 6. 4 and 5 are both not divisible. 18, you can't divide 18 by either of those and get a nice pretty number. So these are our only factors. So now let's add these and figure out which one will give us the 3 that we need. So negative 1 plus 18 is 17. Negative 2 plus 9 is 7. And negative 3 plus 6 is 3. So negative 3 and 6 are my factors. So I'm going to rewrite my middle term, replacing it with a negative 3 and a positive 6. So I'll write 9m squared minus 3m plus 6m. So all I did was rewrite that, and then minus 2. Everything else was just brought down. Then I do grouping. I group the first two and I group the last two together and factor out the greatest common factor. So between a 9 and a 9 and a 3, they have a 3 in common. This one has 2 m's, this one has 1, so they do have 1 m in common. So when I write what's left, 9 divided by 3 is 3. We had 2 m's, but we factored 1 out, so I'm just left with 1 m. In my next term, 3 divided by 3 is 1. And I had this m, but I factored it out. So in parentheses, we have 3m minus 1. All right, now I have to find the greatest common factor between a 6m and a 2. So the number that goes into 6 and 2 would be 2. They both don't have m, so I can't factor out an m. So I'd be left with 6 divided by 2 is 3m, and 2 divided by 2 makes 1. So it's good news. What's inside my parentheses is the same. So that means I did it right. So my answer would be my 3m minus 1, and my other factor would be the 3m plus 2. And that would be your answer. All right, go ahead and try number 4 on your own. So go ahead and check, does it look like ax squared plus bx plus c? And it does. We can't take out a greatest common factor because we have a 12, an 11, and a 5. And 11 and 5 are prime numbers. Nothing can go into them anyway. So go ahead and do a times c on top, b on the bottom, and figure out what two factors would add to get your 11. And then group your first two, group your last two, and write your two factors for me. All right, let's go ahead and do number 5 together. Okay, so we have 3x squared, so that's my ax squared, minus an 11x, so that's like my bx, and then plus c. So I'm good, it's in standard form. Nothing will divide into 3, 11, and 10, so I don't have to worry about factoring out a GCF. My a is 3 and my c is 10, so 3 times 10 is 30. And my b is negative 11. All right, so I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to get a positive 30. But when I add them, I have to get a negative number. So the only way it's possible to multiply to get a positive and add to get a negative is for both of your numbers to be negative. Because remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. All right, so let's write down all our factors of 30. We could do 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 4 does not go into 30 evenly. And then of course we have 5 times 6. Keeping in mind all these did have to be negative because our negative times our negative would make a positive. All right, so now if I add these together, -1 plus -30 is -31. -2 plus -15 is -17. -3 plus -10 is -13. And -5 plus -6 is -11. So these are my two factors, -5 and -6. So I'm gonna rewrite my expression, replacing my bx term with my two new factors. So 3x squared minus 5x minus 6x, and then plus 10 still. Then we'll group together our first two terms and group together our second two terms. All right, so we're looking for what goes into 3 and 5, and there's nothing. But I do have 2 x's here and 1 here. So they do have an x in common. So my greatest common factor is x. When I factor that out, I'd be left with 3x minus 5. Now my second grouping, you have to be careful here. Whenever your factor starts with a negative, I recommend taking out a negative. So we're gonna think what goes into 6 and 10. And it would be 2, because 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 5 is 10. So, but instead of just taking out a plain old 2, I'm gonna take out a -2. So then we're just gonna have to think a little bit here. So -6 divided by -2 is a positive 3x. And then a 10 divided by a -2 is a -5. So the reason I knew to do that, and it always will work, if you ever start with a negative here, always factor it out. But these are now the exact same, 3x minus 5. If I wouldn't have taken out a negative, they wouldn't have become the same. So 3x minus 5 is one of my factors, and my other factor is x minus 2. And that is your answer. All right, go ahead and try number 6 on your own. All right, so for number 7, let's do this one together. So if we look, just to double check, we do have ax squared plus bx plus a c, so we're good. Nothing goes into an 8, a 27, and a 20, so we don't have a GCF. I am gonna do what multiplies to get a times c and adds to get the b. So a and c are 8, ooh, this is a big one, 8 and -20. So 8 times -20 is -160. And then I'm adding to get -27. All right, let's do this. All right, so -160. Well, let's also first think. We're multiplying to get a negative, and we're also adding to get a negative. So one of my numbers is negative and one is positive, and the bigger number has to be negative to add to make a negative. So we have to keep that in mind. All right, 160 divided by 2 is 80. So I'm gonna say 2 and -80. 160 divided by 3 doesn't work. 160 divided by 4 is 40. So I have 4 and -40. 160 divided by 5 is 32. So 5 and -32. 160 divided by 6 doesn't work. Divided by 7 doesn't work. 160 divided by 8 is 20. So I'm gonna say 8 and -20. 160 divided by 9 doesn't work. 160 divided by 10 is 16. So I'd have 10 and -16. 160 divided by 17 doesn't work. 160 divided by 18 doesn't work. 160, I guess that's it. I'm back, I'm good, I'm done. Okay, I already made it back to 16. All right, so now I'm gonna add all these, and one of these needs to add up to make a -27. All right, so when I add these, 2 and a -80 would make a -72. 4 plus -40 is -36. 5 plus -32 is -27. So those are my two values I need, 5 and -32. So now I'm gonna rewrite my expression, replacing my -27a with my two numbers here. All right, so we would get 8 a squared plus 5a minus 32a minus 20. And then I'm going to group together my first two terms and group together my last two terms. All right, so between 8 and 5, nothing goes into both of those, so I don't have a number to factor out. But I do have an a squared and an a, so they do have an a in common, so I'll factor out my 1a. So inside, you'd be left with 8a plus 5. All right, we said whenever it starts with a negative, you have to factor out a negative. So I'm thinking of the largest number that goes into 32 and 20. And I believe that is 4, because 4 times 8 is 32 and 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm really going to pull out a negative 4. Okay. So then negative 32 divided by a negative 4 would be a positive 8, a. And then negative 20 divided by negative 4 would be a positive 5. Oops. So my two factors are 8a plus 5 and a minus 4. And that would be your answer. All right, go ahead and try number 8. Keep in mind, since there isn't a number in front of this p, this is like a 1. So your b value is negative 1. So it multiplies to get a times c. So 10 times negative 20, or negative 2, which is negative 20, and adds to get b. So write down all your factors of negative 20. Keep in mind, you're adding to get a negative, so it's just like the one I just did, so your bigger number has to be negative. All right, let's try number 9 together. So I have 10k squared plus 75k plus 35. So it is in standard form. Okay, these numbers are pretty big, and I know we've had a couple that are big, but you may also notice I have a 10, a 75, and a 35. You may see right away that 5 may go into all of them. I might be able to factor out a greatest common factor of 5, so let's check. So we know that 10 divided by 5 is 2, so this is 2 times 5. What's 75 divided by 5? It is 15, so 15 times 5 is 75, and then 7 times 5 is 35. So I could factor out this greatest common factor of 5. So 10 divided by 5 we said was a 2k squared plus 75 divided by 5 would make a 15k plus 35 divided by 5 would make 7. And that greatest common factor I'm going to put out front there. All right, so now I'm going to kind of ignore that 5 for now. It's just going to kind of tag along for the